Thank you for that report. Excellent. Really appreciate the update. Moving on, watersheds, item 6.1. Receive an update on the Coyote Creek flood projects, Coyote Creek Flood Management Measures Project, CCFMMP, being implemented under the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, Water Compliance Project, FOCP, and Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project, CCFPP, project number 918-64007 and 261-74043, San Jose District 2, District 3, and District 6. This is information only. Bhavani?
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Varela and members of the board. Bhavani Yarpothu, Deputy Operating Officer, Watershed Design and Construction. This PowerPoint is to give you an update on the Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project, which we've been working on since 2017. As the board is aware, since following the 2017 floods, this project was conceived and became part of our capital program. It's a 9-mile stretch along Coyote Creek that's going to be designed and constructed for flood protection levels to meet a flood similar to the 2017 event. But ever since the FERC order in 2020 that has actually mandated the construction and the schedule for the Anderson Dam Tunnel, there are certain elements of this project that are being prioritized and expedited to be implemented in time for completion of construction before the Anderson Dam Tunnel is operational. So 40% of this project is being executed as the Coyote Creek Flood Management Measures Project, and then the remainder 60% is going to follow along a year later for construction with the Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project. The project design itself includes your standard elements of the flood protection, which are flood walls as well as riparian habitat and widened floodplains. In this instance, we have a combination of the sheet piles as well as your standard tubular piles, as well as coordination with the City of San Jose. I want to acknowledge Kip Harkness, Deputy City Manager from the City of San Jose, whose staff we've been working very closely to coordinate some of the trail and bridge replacement project along Coyote Creek. This rendering particularly is at the Mabry Yard junction, which has elements both from the first part of the project, which is the Flood Management Measures Project, as well as the Flood Protection Project. So the project progress, as I mentioned, it was conceived back in 2017 following the floods, and it was in a planning phase where we looked at all of the alternatives, and then the FERC order kind of put some emphasis on this project and some elements that were taken out as a separate project construction package that is coming out to bid pretty soon, in fact, in the next couple months, that we are wrapping up the construction documents and hoping to bring it forward to the board for approval to put it out to bid in December. And then the construction's supposed to take about 18-month period. It is a pretty short window of construction for the first part of the project. Again, we are racing against time to kind of catch up to the Anderson Dam Tunnel operational, so we have the additional capacity for the larger tunnel that's being constructed. And then the Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project is under design, about 60% design that is going to follow through in another year for construction or implementation. We do have a few challenges, like most of our project, a project of this scale and magnitude, and then the complexities of trying to time and phase the construction. So the first one that we are dealing with is right-of-way needs. Because of the close proximity of the creek and the improvements needed to the existing residences and businesses, there is quite a few properties all along the creek that we either need temporary construction easements, permanent easements, or in some cases full acquisitions to allow for the project implementation. For the first project, the Coyote Creek Flood Management Measures, there are about 31 properties that are impacted. A lot of them, we do need them to be completed with our acquisitions and right-of-way entry agreements done before we let the contractor in on site, or at least even award the contract. So we are well on our way to finish those transactions, and in the next few months, we're hoping to bring forward as additional transactions and full acquisitions as we close them out. What's driving those full acquisitions is a relocation plaza, as was required by the state law that was adopted by the board back in February. And all of these negotiations and transactions are being completed in accordance with that relocation plan. For the second project, the Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project, which is the larger project, there are a larger number of properties. How many of them will actually result in full acquisitions versus just temporary or permanent construction easement is still yet to be determined and will depend a lot on the design elements as we proceed with the project. The next challenge, unhoused abatement. Several sections of this creek, in fact, pretty much all along the length of the creek, we do have significant impacts with unhoused encampments. We're working very closely with the City of San Jose. In fact, an internal strike team led by our Assistant CEO, Melanie Richardson, and then co-led by our City of San Jose counterparts with Kip Harkness leading on the other side on trying to come up with a abatement timeline. One of the challenges with this abatement is that the timing has to be almost Goldilocks-like, just in time. So we can't do the cleanups way ahead of time so they get re-encamped again before we release the site to the contractor to take over the site. So we've come up with a tentative timeline that we're still working with the City of San Jose. There are some additional work that the City of San Jose Housing Abatement Team is working on in January. So we've adjusted our timelines to do the required outreach in conjunction with the City of San Jose, post the necessary notices that we need to, and then come up with an outreach plan, basically an outreach plan for the residences and the businesses that may be impacted because of the abatement activities that we are going to be conducting in this area. One big thing on this is typically on flood protection projects, when we have a section of the creek, usually we release the entire project to the contractor. In this case, we may need to phase the notice of proceed and phase the construction in pieces. So we abate them in time to release to the contractor in sections. And I think it's also to give our City of San Jose partners enough time to do the necessary outreach and services outreach that they need to do ahead of clearing out these abatements. Since the beginning of this project and since the 2017 floods, this has been one project that has had extensive public outreach and stakeholder engagement. We've had 27 meetings since 2017 and an exhaustive list of mailing addresses that we've been reaching out to the community, nextdoor.com posts, as well as email updates. The pictures on this slide are the most recent public meetings we've held in May. Those were meetings that we actually had hybrid, where they were Facebook live streamed as well as in person as well. Well attended meetings. In fact, one of the meetings had almost close to 50 some attendees as well. And each of these meetings had significant input from the public as well. That just is a timeline of all of the meetings that we've had as the project proceeded from preliminary development of the alternatives, the project, the design details. The pictures on this slide show what is a passive barrier, basically the barrier that actually remains flat on the ground in the roadway and then goes up in anticipation or hydrostatically activated when floodwaters hit that. Some of these elements that we usually put in a right-of-way, such as a roadway, because you can't obviously have the flood wall standing up all the time, we've accommodated based on public input to allow first these elements to be considered and designed as part of the parks as well, to allow for a line of sight and provide for some security and alleviate some concerns of security from the public safety and security. Environmental planning, that's another one that's proceeding. Because this is a project that's being executed under the FERC order compliance project, the project itself is CEQA exempt. However, the regional permits still do apply. So the lake and streambed alteration agreement, the LSAA amendment, and then the state and regional water boards 401 certification amendments have been submitted by staff last week. We're not anticipating any challenges related to that because there is an emergency exemption for the project. And then the Valley Habitat Plan requires an updated description of the areas as well, and potentially an updated fee schedule that we need to pay the fees for. The second part of the project, the flood protection project, we've just started the CEQA review for that project, completed the project description and going through our full CEQA review as well. Costs. Just like every other project and the inflation-related impacts to all of our business areas, the capital projects tend to be one that we are hearing from other agencies as well as seeing in our other projects that are going to be impacted due to inflation, just the design elements as they've progressed, and then COVID-related staffing shortages with the contractors and availability of contractors, supply chain issues specifically related to the sheet piles. Right now, they're talking about 6 to 8 month lead time of procuring the sheet piles itself, and then the field conditions itself, the really close proximity to the existing residences and businesses, and access is going to make this impact the cost because it's going to be difficult to get access to these areas for construction. We are doing everything we can to buffer those costs and impacts to our revenue streams by pursuing a WIFIA loan package. In fact, in a couple of weeks, CFO Darren Taylor's team will be bringing forth a WIFIA loan package that includes funding for this project as well. And we've just been notified this week of FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant, which we could get up to $50 million to invited us to apply for that. We have a few more hurdles on that, trying to figure out the benefit cost analysis, as well as to work in partnership with our building official, in this case, City of San Jose, to come up with a building rating system that will make us competitive. But nonetheless, we are working on those avenues as well to pursue this grant funding. We have a few other implementation challenges. Like I mentioned, there is a very short construction window, an 18-month construction window that is going to make the completion of this project a little difficult and challenging, in the phasing requiring a lot more thought. We're working with our consultant team and the construction management services contract that we're hoping to bring forward to the board in trying to phase things, as well as to put some pre-qualifications and other requirements in the contract that would make it feasible and not run into any challenges during implementation. We do have local agency projects, like I mentioned, City of San Jose's Trail and Creek projects that we're continuing to coordinate with. The bird nesting season, that's also a short season. We have vegetation crews that is managing the vegetation to get ahead of that before the contractor takes out of the site. One of the pictures on this slide is showing the what is called the geek and silent piler that is being used for construction of our lower penitentiary project, and the proximity of the houses requires us to use this specialized equipment because of the vibration and noise sensitivity in this area for implementation. So these pilers are actually in high demand in the Northern California area. So we're trying to figure out which other contractors that we can shortlist or potentially pre-qual to reach out to them ahead of time to let them know the scope of the project and then the magnitude and when it's going to come out. So we put these subcontractors on notice to get ahead of this, of the need. We do have supply chain issues, like I mentioned, for the piles as well, that we're trying to reach out to the pile manufacturers as well. With that, there is a lot of action that's coming up on this item, specifically for this project itself, and then broadly for the CIP development. Between now and February, we will continue to close out those real estate transactions and bring forward to the board for approval. And then, like I said, in a couple of weeks, the WIFIA loan package is coming forward for the board to get your approval. And then we have the CIP committee that is going to be looking at our significant capital project date, including the cost and schedule update for this project, as well as the prelim CIP that looks at the overall CIP as well. That's coming forth in December. And then we are in negotiations with the construction management services contract for this project. And that we anticipate to bring forward that to the board in December for an approval, secure approval for award. And in December to advertise the construction contract itself. January will be the full CIP that's coming forward to the board. And then hopefully by February, we'll clear all the right-of-way issues and figure out the phasing and the housing abatement or the unhoused abatement issues, and then bring forward approve or a recommendation to award by the board. And with that, I stand open for any questions.
Thank you, Bhavani, for that very thorough